Hey everyone, AngryHoneyBadger here, and it's time for another quick build. Today we're going to be taking a look at Kayle. She actually was the runner-up in the voting, but I actually have some real footage for the actual winner from the voting. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at Kayle and make a build for her today. And if you want to go ahead and vote on the next quick build, there is a link in the description that will take you over to a straw poll, and you can vote over there for who you would maybe like to see next. But let's go ahead and jump on into Kayle's runes and masteries. The rune page that I take with Kayle sometimes differs a little bit, but what I usually will do is take those magic penetration marks. I do like taking mana regen per level, scaling seals. They're not terrible. If you don't like these and you want to use armor for safety, you can do that. It's not a bad choice. That's what I'd recommend instead. But then I also take AP per level glyphs and then AP quintessences. As for my masteries that I take when I play Kayle, I usually take my AP mid page, which is a 2109. 21 in the offensive tree will help me out with everything over there. That'll give me a lot of, I'm going to be building AP, so we're going to be taking a lot of all the AP things we need. Will give us increased ratios over there. And we can take 9 utility for increased buff duration. We take blue buff from our jungler when they give it to us. And there's some other helpful things in here like mana regen and health regen and a few other nice things. As for Kayle's abilities, at level 1, I usually will actually put a point into my Righteous Fury. It makes it a little bit easier for poking early and last hitting in lane. But you can obviously take your Q at level 1. But what I usually will do then is put a point into my Q at level 2, which will allow me to do a lot of damage to them, slow them, and it gives me that increased damage, and then I can team that up with my Righteous Fury, which is my E. I will be maxing out my Q first, though. We just take the E early for, you know, range, being safe. So we max out our Q first. We max out our E second, and then we max out our W, which is our Divine Blessing, which heals us and gives us a quick little movement speed buff last. Obviously, put points into your ultimate at levels 6, 11, and 16. As for the items I like to take when I'm playing Kayle, I typically will be taking her to the mid lane or maybe top, but what I'm focusing on is playing AP Kayle. I know previously in other builds when I have played as Kayle, I have done some of those hybrid or attack speed Kayles, and those are still pretty good, but right now I think her strongest is just a full AP Kayle, because she can pretty much two-hit people with a couple items. So what we like to do is early on, we pick up the Doran's Ring and a couple health pots, head out to mid lane. First few trips back, if you want to pick up another Doran's Ring, not a terrible idea. If you're just laning, you want a little bit more sustain, regen some damage. Then pick up boots, not a terrible idea, and then a stinger and your finished codex. Now, as for your first few main items, we're going to build that stuff into a Gnasher's Tooth. Depending on the boots you want, you can either do the attack speed boots or magic pen. Just kind of comes down to a personal preference and what you're going for and what your style of play is. And then we also pick up a Lich Bane because that's going to help us out with a lot of damage, especially after we use our Q to hit them with a lot of damage and slow them. Our next standard attack with Righteous Fury is really going to burn straight through them. That's kind of your two-hit Kayle. What we do with the build as it continues on is after those first 3 items, we usually follow it up with a death cap, just to increase all of that damage. A Void Staff is always good just to go straight through them and kill everyone. And then I usually will try to go for something maybe like a Zhonya's Hourglass for a little bit of survivability and more damage, and that stasis is obviously really nice. Now, if you don't want the Hourglass because they have tons of magic damage, you can always get the options such as an Abyssal Scepter. If you really want to go over the top with damage potential, you could always get a Deathfire Grasp. Not a terrible idea, but you really don't need it, but it's out there in case you need it. If you kind of want to go a little hybridy and get a little bit of sustain, you can either pick up a Hextech Gunblade instead or the Rage Blade. Both of them will be able to give you a little bit of regen. At least Rage Blade does after you fall below 50% health. But the Hextech Gunblade's not a terrible idea either. It also has that unique active on it, which is pretty helpful too for slowing enemies and chasing. So that's pretty much going to be a quick build for Kayle. Works out really well. It allows you to pretty much two-hit people who aren't super tanks, and it wrecks people in game. It's pretty strong. But that's going to be a quick build for Kayle. Obviously, don't forget to go vote in the straw poll for who you would like to perhaps see next for a quick build. But other than that, I'll just see all of you guys in the next video. If we're going to go ahead and gank the Riven again because it's just too easy. She has no turret to fall back on. And we can keep pounding these hate spikes as we run at her, which is just going to get us a kill. So we're